Good evening and welcome to ACL Update number 6. My name's Alister Cameron, and as ever I'm with the wonderful Wendy Francis, National Director for Politics. Wendy, how are you going today?
Yeah, good, thanks Alister. I'm here in Canberra today, so it's nice to talk to you from here, the nation's capital.
Indeed, you're sitting in the office right now, but earlier today you were out and about in the capital, starting with a church service. Tell us about that.
Yeah, look, the church service was encouraging for me because there were a lot of MPs there, but also our Prime Minister and also our opposition leader read from the scriptures. So that was the most impressive part of the service for me. To have them both read from the scriptures was special. Yeah, so I enjoyed it.
And it'll mean different things for different people, but to see the leaders of our nation, as they do once a year, for those of you that are not aware, our politicians gather on that first sitting day, which is today, of federal parliament, and they meet together in a church service. And Wendy, do the majority show up for what it's worth?
Look, it's not a large church that it was gathered in this morning. It was the Greek Orthodox this morning. They do change churches. There probably would have been 100 there, I think. But there were a lot of faces that I recognised, and you're sort of sitting amongst, and you look over and you see Peter Dutton, you see Milton Dick, you see Amanda Stoker. They're all there, you know. And yeah, Luke Gosling from Darwin it was nice to catch up with him as well. So there's just all these members of Parliament all gathered together, and it's mainly the Christian fellowship. There in both major parties there are a Christian group. I'd have to say that it's a minority in both parties, but they're there and we're grateful for them.
Yeah, and I was there last year. Also, I think Amanda Stoker and Luke Gosling leading, and they did an excellent job. And sorry I couldn't be there this time. I'm down in Melbourne for the time being, but I'm really glad you could be there, Wendy. You weren't just there at a church service. You were also up on Parliament Hill, dodging all manner of protesters, I'm probably sure for all manner of different reasons. Why were you up there today?
So I was up there for two reasons. To talk about the religious discrimination bill, which is being tabled today, all being well, but also to meet with the group that are Christians United for Afghanistan. And so they were one of the groups out on the lawn. But as you say, there was a menagerie out there today, and there was lots of noise and drums and everything was going off. But it was loud, but it was it felt like democracy in progress, to be honest, because there were all these people making their voices heard. But yeah, so those were the two main reasons I was up there today.
And hey, democracy is messy.
Yeah. It is, and it was very messy there today.
And we've actually we've got footage of you, Wendy. So you finish your sentence, but we've got footage of you, and we'll jump to that in just a moment.
I was dressed because I'd been in the church service, so I was dressed, like a good Christian woman, and all the others were like in party dress or there were a few hippie sort of outfits, but also there were lots of mums and dads and children around, so it was quite a nice atmosphere.
All right, well, let's just go to that. All right, so Wendy, we've got you down at Parliament House. This is being recorded in the afternoon, and you are not there, as far as I'm aware, protesting vaccine mandates or various other things. You're actually down there with others talking about Afghan refugees. Wendy, we've got some photos and some images going, which you've also taken for us, but give us a sense of what's going on down there, and what are we asking?
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Alister, for this opportunity, because, of course, it's a really big day down here. Well, obviously, we have thousands of people here for the vaccine mandate, but there's also the religious discrimination bill being discussed right now in Parliament. But what I'm out here for at the moment is joining with other Christians united for Afghanistan. And, what we've been calling on federal government to do is to act to protect the people from Afghanistan, to reunite their families, and we also want a special refugee intake of 20,000 men, women and children from Afghanistan. This is over and above our current number that we bring in. And so that's what we're calling on the government to do. And you will have seen a few visions. It's hard to get through right to the speakers at the moment because there's so many people here, but they're here for various reasons. And it's a really, the temperature is warm here in Canberra, but I can tell you that the temperature of people here is pretty raised in terms of what their social expectations are of the government here today.
Excellent. Wendy, the website that people have been referred to, and we've been referring folks to, is Australians United for Afghanistan. That will be in the show notes, along with anything else that we talk about. That's gone well. You said 20,000 refugees. What would you say to any ACL supporters who are a tiny bit hesitant of some of these projects because they sound potentially a little bit left of centre from what we would normally do? What is that? What is the heart behind ACL in this project?
Yeah, do you know, we've always been supportive of the government's desire to keep Australians safe and to keep our borders secure, and that is still important to us, very important. But what we're looking at around the world at the moment, and particularly in Afghanistan, is people who are in dire circumstances. And so, you know, it was one of those things, like, you know how you read your Bible reading in the morning and a verse just jumps out at you because you're doing something that very day. And my normal Bible reading this morning was the verse in Micah 6:8 was part of it, and it was, you know, He has told you what is good. He has told you what is good. And that, what does the Lord require of you? It is to do justice and to love kindness and to walk humbly before our God. So there's a justice that needs to happen here that is not happening for the people in Afghanistan. And so we in Australia can offer a certain amount of refuge for people who are fleeing some terrible circumstances. And so we're just asking the government to increase the number who can come in, but also to reunite families who have been tragically separated during this issue.
Yeah. Absolutely. And look, there's an opportunity for this really to we can make a strong statement ahead of the federal election, really push for the Liberal Party in government right now to bring that through. And that's obviously the hope behind this protest action, this demonstration right now. Although the timing isn't great, Wendy, there's a lot of other noises being made on the Hill today, I dare say.
Yeah, there really is. There's thousands of people here. There's police with shields. Like, there's hundreds of police.
Yeah.
They are being very respectful and kind to everybody. They were very kind to me. They even gave me a sausage for lunch, which was pretty nice. But it's just a hive of activity here. And yet the opposite is happening in Parliament House, because Parliament is closed to the public because of all this. So inside Parliament today, it was eerily quiet. Very little happening, no one around, doors are all pretty closed. And so inside I was there and quiet, come outside and there's just this massive melee of people all here for different reasons. But basically there's a lot of unrest happening in Australia today.
Indeed. All right, well, there's more to talk about. Wendy, make your way safely back to the studio, back to the office, and we'll talk again shortly. All right, that was Wendy from up on the Hill, dodging protesters of various kinds. And just a reminder, folks, Australians United for Afghanistan.com in the show notes, and have a click through and contribute to that would be wonderful, at least in terms of your support, your signature. All right, so really this week, Wendy, it is still the Religious Discrimination Bill, and we can't really talk about that without making reference to the Citipointe story that really broke roughly a week ago, but it really became a feeding frenzy for the political left, if I'm even being kind in using that language. But it was an opportunity potentially to sort of, could it have derailed the Religious Discrimination Bill? What ended up happening out of that?
Look, as people of faith, we have to know and believe. One of our basic tenets is that God has his hand on everything and he has control. And so this has not caught him by surprise, but it certainly did catch us by surprise. And to all outside looking in, it has thrown a real spanner in the works, because the things that Christian schools have been saying, we don't want to expel students because of their sexuality, all of a sudden there was this contract that seems to be saying something the opposite. I live in Brisbane, and so Citipointe Christian College is a great school. Mm-hmm. They are known for their pastoral care. They put into a contract the beliefs of that we believe as Christians. Whether or not it was wisely done, I'll leave that for other people to decide. But because of that contract, we are in renegotiations over and over again at the moment with the Religious Discrimination Bill. And even as I speak, they are meeting up there back on the Hill about it and trying to work out what amendments will go through, because there are going to be amendments now.
Right, and the Religious Discrimination Bill, which becomes an act if it's passed, is one part of it. There's also the Sex Discrimination Act and some suggestions of some changes occurring there.
And so all along, we've been saying to the government, this is about religious discrimination. Please, let's separate the two, because this is not about the Sex Discrimination Act. And the Law Reform Commission are about to do a review on the Sex Discrimination Act. But because of what's happened with Citipointe, and to be honest, I think it was always a danger that this was going to happen, Citipointe or not. All of a sudden, we have the Prime Minister and certainly the Shadow Attorney General seem to be working on amendments that will amend the Sex Discrimination Act. And this is going into really dangerous territory for us as people of faith, because what we could end up with, if we're not careful, is a religious discrimination bill that actually removes religious freedom from Christians and people of faith rather than to give them more freedom.
Yeah. And they'll take that opportunity if they can find any opportunity for it. What sort of resolve do we feel is present, particularly among the two major parties? Of course, one of the features of this has been more than just tacit approval from the Labor Party, but actual support for it from Senate committees down. And that remains the case. So is there a sense of resolve? Do we feel like we're going to have a good week?
There is a sense of resolve among individual members,
Okay.
people like senators like Senator Matt Canavan, Amanda Stoker. I've been up speaking with Deb O'Neill, ALP, this morning. And so there are individuals who are still resolved to produce a good religious discrimination bill. But I fear that the tide is turning against us. And we won't know until the end of this week how it all washes up in the end. But ACL and Christian schools will not support a bill if it ends up taking away religious freedom from particularly our Christian schools, rather than give them more assurance. We will not support it.
So really, it's been a fascinating week. You can't write this stuff. It's just extraordinary. It remains an unremarkable bill I feel like I've said that a dozen times. It remains an unremarkable bill. If it passes, it's the beginning of something we hope would improve over time. It's fundamentally about just bringing us into balance with what we see in terms of protections from discriminations as far as other groups are concerned. It's bringing Christians into line with that. Any final thoughts on that one for now, Wendy, given that we will have more to say next week and we may well have seen things, they'll have to land this week given it's the Senate sitting week, isn't it?
ACL have already run a really good, strong campaign, and our supporters have responded very well. But the two things that I think we can do now is, first and foremost, to pray.
Yeah.
Pray that the religious discrimination bill will not go through with amendments that will actually make it difficult for us to raise our children with truth. But also, if you have if your member is someone you feel that you could just reach out to, just send a quick email letting them know that you really want religious freedom for religious Australians to be passed without amendments, because we've seen the bill, we've seen the two committee reports. The two committee reports actually recommended that the bill be passed. And now, all of a sudden, at this very late stage, it feels like we're lurching back to amendments that we don't even know what they actually hold. So pray and, send an email if you can.
And one other thing that you can do is we really want to let the message be heard that those with skin in the game, Christians, as parents, as students, as grandparents who've benefited from Christian schooling, are standing up and saying so. It's not just triggered by the Citipointe story. It's It's just a broad statement. We think it's a really important point to make right now. There are a lot of activists out there, clicktivists, if you will, who have no skin in the game, wanting to just register a protest on a change.org petition or something like that. But what we want to see is individuals who are invested in Christian schooling. You could be a teacher standing up and saying so and sharing a testimony. So we've put this website together, ilovemychristianschool.com. We've got over 100 signatories, and we've just this really today launched it. So please take an opportunity in the next few days. If you've got a little short story to tell, just a few sentences of testimony in support of your Christian schooling, that of your children, possibly that of your grandchildren, we would love to hear that. It's published pseudo-anonymously. We give some of your details away, just enough so that you wouldn't be spamming it and getting away with it. But it's a chance to really stand up and say something in that simple way. And we'd love to see you be a part of it. Any final words on that, Wendy?
Well, I was one of the second people. I think I was trying to be the first, but I think I was the second. Put up my little story because Christian schooling in our family was very significant, and so I'm very grateful to the school that helped raise our 3 children. But I would really encourage people, because this Christian schooling at the moment, they're going through it. I mean, can you imagine Citipointe at the moment? They're really going through it. So yeah, encouragement is just part of what we do as Christians. So this is one form of encouragement that's not difficult to do and yet so meaningful.
And we do encourage you, please keep Citipointe, not just the formal leadership of the school, but the church that they relate to, the student community, the parents. Just keep them all in your prayers, as we are. Really appreciate that. Wendy, while we're talking about websites, the New South Wales euthanasia voluntary assisted dying, voluntary assisted suicide, as we would typically phrase it, bill is imminent, or the voting is imminent. There is an e-petition that's on screen now as well, so we're inviting everybody in New South Wales, strictly if you're in New South Wales, to sign that. You've got a few days left to do that. How's that looking, Wendy?
Yeah, look, it's looking good. We need as many signatures as we can possibly get in that. This is a government e-petition format, so it's one of those formats that cannot be fudged, and ACL always go that way. Like, our own petitions are not petitions that can be fudged, and this one certainly is that as well, because many petitions that we see that reach these massive numbers, they're people with 3 different email accounts, or the people from all around the world. This is one of those really strong. So every name that goes on that, every New South Wales person who signs that, the MPs know this is a real person who's going to vote. Yeah.
So jump in on that one. Excellent. All right. Well, look, we've got a few minutes left, and an exciting opportunity to introduce some new people, Wendy. We don't do that every day of the week. But just for your clarity's sake, if you're new to the ACL, we sort of have different branches of what we do, but we're talking more and more about what we call our field operations, or building our grassroots movement. And Wendy, we've hired 2 new amazing people, actually people that were not new to us because they'd already been working in our sort of volunteering capacity. But would you like to introduce the first of those for us today?
So Tamara Pavlovich is actually from Queensland, and she's got an amazing background, and she speaks a really amazing language. And she's from Serbia, but her language is a different name, so I'm going to actually let her tell you that. But I love listening to Tamara pray. She is a lobbyist from way back. She's spoken at the UN. She's, one of those resumes that's just really impressive. So I'm excited to have Tamara join the team in Queensland, and she's our new state coordinator. So Tamara, would you like to just say hi to everybody? We'd love to hear a bit from you.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Alister, for having me part of the update. I have to admit, my husband and I watch the update every week, so it's going to be very odd watching myself on the update, but very grateful for it. I speak Serbian. What Wendy was referring to was Cyrillic, actually, which is an alphabet that we use when so that was something that we spoke about the other day, but I'm really grateful to be part of the ACL and this wonderful family that we have. Christ has truly brought us all together, and so that we may live out his truth. And I really look forward to getting to know everybody on a more familiar basis within the ACL, all of our years. And if you see me out and about, definitely come and say hi.
Yeah, so Tamara, you are a state coordinator. That's on the volunteering or on the field side of the operations. I know it's a bit early to ask, but what do you think, perhaps is the right way to ask the question, what do you think a normal day is going to look like for you in your role?
Look, it is quite early. I think, the most wonderful person who was in the role prior to I joining the ACL, and that's Wendy. So if I have a look at what Wendy's done, I'm not even sure that I'll be able to achieve half of it, but I will definitely try, and with God's grace, I will be able to. I envision that for the beginning few months anyhow, I'll be really focusing on networking and meeting a lot of the in this beautiful state of ours of Queensland, a lot of different churches as well. For the beginning, I will definitely be focusing on engaging with the Orthodox community. So that's Serbian, Russian, Greek, Bulgarian, Romanian, just to really branch out and invite them to be part of this wonderful journey that we're all on.
Sounds amazing. So Wendy, that was part of your remit in your previous role before jumping on a plane and pretty much staying on a plane all the time. What's your feeling about handing the Queensland field side of things to Tamara?
I feel really excited because I think when God moves you on and somebody else comes in and takes puts their legs underneath the desk you used to sit in, sort of thing, he always does something new. And he's doing something new with Tamara because she has giftings that I don't have, and she has ideas that I didn't have after 10 years. You sort of can get stuck in a rut as well. So I just feel like this fresh young woman has come in who loves God passionately and really cares for Australian kids as well as her own child. And so I feel excited to watch what happens with Tamara. I really do.
And I join Wendy in that, Tamara. It's really exciting for what's going to happen in Queensland under your field leadership. So we really look forward to more conversations with you on ACL Update as well. All right, now, yes, glory to God. Thank you, Tamara. The way, just for, in case anybody's wondering, the way we sort of structure the field is we divide Australia up into, at the moment, 150, sometimes it's 151 federal electorates. And then we sort of break those down. If you look at Queensland, New South Wales, Victoria, you're sort of in the ballpark of 30 electorates. But when you take some of the smaller states, you can sort of group them together to get that sort of similar number. And that's what we've done with the responsibilities assigned to our next new person. Wendy, would you like to introduce her?
So Sarah is well known to people if they're in Tasmania already. And Sarah comes from a professional background. She's, this is one of the things I love about people who come and join ACL. They are so incredibly gifted and talented, and they could, do so many other things, but they actually put their hand down and say, you know what, I'm going to actually work for ACL. And so we're thankful to you, Sarah, so much for joining our team. But Sarah will be looking after Tasmania and South Australia because Tasmania is only really tiny. And so, we need to make sure that she's kept busy all the time. No, we're really excited to have Sarah. So she'll be working alongside Christopher Broyer as well. But she's already done so much, particularly in Tassie. So she's well known there, but not so well known to the rest of Australia. So it's great to introduce her to everybody.
Hello, everyone.
Sarah, yes, go for it.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, you start.
I was just going to say, like when you said, I'm Sarah, and I'm a teacher, and I've been part of the ACL volunteering team for a few years, and it was just really exciting to me when God led me into this position. So I'm super pumped to be part of the ACL team now.
Now, am I right, Sarah, you're covering Tasmania, South Australia, as Wendy said, but also the Northern Territory?
Yes, that's correct.
Is that right? Okay.
It is.
So not just sort of to calm Sarah down, we had to remind her that in electorate terms, like I was saying before, even if you add those three together, it's still only roughly the size of, let's say, New South Wales on its own or something like that. So geographically, it's absolutely enormous, and we're not taking that away from you, but we think it's achievable strictly on the number of electorates that you're dealing with, Sarah. But it probably still seems quite intimidating to you.
That's the thing. Like you said, it's definitely achievable in regards to electorates, but because I'm Tasmanian, I know a lot about what's happening here in Tassie. So now it's just upskilling myself and getting to know what's going on in the political sphere in South Australia and Northern Territory too. So I've spent a lot of my time on that over the last few weeks, and it's really exciting to see the way God's working all across the country and not just where I live.
Yep, that's right. And you'll be working a fair bit with Christopher Brohier, who has... in complement with your field focus, he has more of the political focus, obviously.
That's correct. And it's really great to have Christopher and I working together because we come from such different backgrounds and different skills, like Wendy was mentioning. So it's really wonderful to have someone else who knows the states, knows what's going on, and can be a support. And I mean, everything goes better in team. So that's what I'm really excited about. And the way that God can lead Christopher and I in our roles is something I'm really looking forward to.
Yeah, wonderful, wonderful. Well, look, so for those of you that are wondering how does this play out for the ACL, we are looking to build these two parallel structures of a political leadership team and a grassroots or field operation leadership team. And you're seeing that sort of emerge here over time. So it's really wonderful to have you both, Tamara and Sarah, on board. Look forward to seeing so much more of what happens and introducing some new folk on top of the two of you in weeks to come. Wendy, we're fast running out of time, actually. Is there anything that we need to cover before we say goodbye for one more week?
I don't think so, but I had forgotten that Sarah was doing Northern Territory, or I don't even know that I realised. She's looking after the size of, a few small European countries.
Absolutely.
No, look, the team is growing. We are excited for this year. We're very tentative at the moment about the religious discrimination bill and where it's going to go. So we're grateful to everybody for their prayers and support because, always when you've been involved in a campaign for months and then it gets to the stage where we're at now and all of a sudden we can almost see the ground being snatched away. But, as I said at the beginning when we were talking about it, God knows, and this has not taken him by surprise. And so we just trust him and we choose to be faithful regardless.
Yeah, Wendy, that's a perfect way to conclude for this week, folks. We invite you to join with us in prayer. We invite you to hold up the Parliament, the Parliament's plural, state and federal, but at this time the federal Parliament, and the voting that needs to occur, the deliberations that need to conclude in just these 3 days starting today, and God willing with legislation at the end of it for religious discrimination. And we'll start with that and we'll see if we can improve it over coming months and years. Bless you all. Thank you so much, and we look forward to seeing you again next week.